Okay, so now, question on the table. What does it take for us to shift our mindset from that limiting belief of, oh, I'm just not this creative person, to thinking that we can be creative? What's it going to take to make that happen? And what's it going to take to make our creative juices kind of bubble up? And I have a couple of exercises that we're going to do today. And I also have this book that I'm going to give away today too. I found I had extras on my bookshelf, so I thought, this is a fun one. So Heather says, number one, stop saying that you're not creative. There we go. So if we can take that out of our vocabulary, I think that would be an important way to go about it.
I think that people need to embrace what appeals to them. So I know I love fun fonts and I'm attracted to color and I love infographics. I do honestly feel like I'm a creative person. I've done a lot of scrapbooking and card making. So all of those things appeal to me. So it's just like lean into it and embrace it. You love those things. So technically you do have a creative aspect to you when you shop, or like when a book cover appeals to you, there's a reason it appeals to you. It's kind of tapping into your creative side and what you actually enjoy.
I agree. I think if you can build on that, then your creativity blossoms. Right, Kelly?
I'm a big proponent of just letting go of the fear of failure and risk, because the creativity process is full of failure. I have some really bad paintings that I've done, and then I've had some really beautiful ones, and that some work and some don't, and you can just paint over it. Same with making jewelry and gardening. If the plant doesn't look good there, well, then move it, right? I'm with Carol that there is part of creativity is figuring out what you like. And then why do you like it?
I love that sentiment so much, and I wrote it down. The creativity process is full of failure. I think that is just the best statement, because it's absolutely true, right? I know that I've failed on a number of things, and then maybe that something that comes out the end wasn't even close to what I was thinking about doing at the beginning. And that's kind of fun, right? Mary, don't shame yourself for not being interested in doing PowerPoints. Maybe your creative interests are elsewhere. Absolutely. A lot of times we think we've got to fit into a certain niche or do a certain thing. You know what? That's just not our groove.
What I find interesting from a creativity thing is the idea that you have to come up with something unique, which I think is what a lot of people struggle with. I think that's probably highly unlikely. There's only 6 notes in music, but every piece of music always seems to sound a bit different. So I'm a big fan of the technique of bricolage, taking art and things from somewhere else and putting them together to create something new. And you can do the same thing with ideas. So a load of the stuff that I talk about is taking ideas from other places, reinterpreting them, changing them slightly. And so one thing I would always encourage people to do is to look at, well, what are the ideas that you like but don't quite make it, and what can you do to change them? That is a really good first step in terms of creativity. Being creative isn't coming up with something new, it's coming up with something which works for you, and it's about assembling all of the ideas that work in one place together.
And I think that goes to, Kelly, what you were talking about. Like if you saw somebody's PowerPoint that was really awesome and you wanted to see, what can I do with that? I think a lot of times if we contacted the person and said, how did you do that? And then you can take that, run with that idea and make it your own. To Andrew's point, it's coming up with something that is different for you. I'm trying to keep up with the chat box with you guys today. Creativity could be imagining something new or innovative. An example would be to revise a process or methodology. You know what? That's a great point, JD. Do you want to carry that forward?
I guess where I was going was it doesn't necessarily have to be something like a design or a PowerPoint or a drawing or something like that. The creativity can be identifying something that can be used to improve a process, or looking at something in a new way or a new light.
I like that a lot, because I you know what? I think that's another thing that compels us to think that we're not creative by nature, because we're automatically thinking about creativity as an art form. When we think about creating different processes, that is also a creative process. That's an iterative process that can be very creative. Carol, getting out into nature can also inspire creativity. Colors, textures, plants, flowers. Absolutely. So Carol, is that something you do often?
Yes. So I'm not a huge summer person, so I don't find myself walking a lot in the heat of the summer, but I will go on an early morning walk or an evening walk. And I just try to just live in the moment. And I like when the air feels fresh and it's on your skin. And I just try to look at things that I see like in my neighborhood or wherever I'm walking. I live in Illinois, so a lot of people plant these spring flowers in front of their houses, and you see like these brilliant like purples and magentas. I'll snap a photo and like kind of save something like color that inspires me or something that I see that inspires me, and I'll kind of contemplate it later on why I liked it so much.
I'm with you. And I'm from Illinois too. I think, as you might know, yes, it's here Illinois in the house. I think other, Midwestern and Eastern states are probably similar. We get so much winter. And then when spring starts to come through the snow, and when the summer flowers finally start to bloom, you have almost a new appreciation for these colors that you haven't seen in like 6 months. I think that it does spark something. And I do that too, Carol, is I find myself taking pictures of things because I'm attracted to the color, not necessarily because I'm attracted to whatever that thing is. And so I think from a creativity perspective, if we followed our instincts, that might lead us to fuel whatever passion or whatever project that it is that we're trying to fuel.
On my phone, I created a photo album called Inspiration. And when I see something, I'll either, if you see it on a website and I'll do a screenshot, or if it's live in real life, I'll actually snap a photo, and then I keep adding photos to that album in my phone. And then when I'm just looking for something nice to look at, I'll pull up that album and scroll through all the photos. So
I love that
it's
idea.
helpful.
I love that idea too.
I do that. I love to read too. And I go to the library or the bookstores, and I do the same thing with book covers, because some book covers are just great. It's like a great font or a great color, and it catches your eye. And I do that a lot. Connie, I love that you do that also.
Yes, I agree with you with the bookstore. I find book covers to be hugely fascinating. I thought I was the only one who thought that. So thank you, Carol. So Connie, you struggle with the difference between creativity of an artist versus creativity of a non-artist. You want to take me through your comment there?
I grew up my mother was an artist and a musician. She could draw anything, paint most anything. She could play most any instrument. And several of my sisters and brothers are just like that, and nephews and nieces. So I feel like I live in an artistic family, and I am not that way. My brain's like a computer. Accounting is easy for me. That's not what I do, but it's easy for me. Numbers and things like that were always easier. So I love to view art. And I guess that's where that book, Still Like an Artist, I like that concept, because I love like the flowers. I take photographs. I literally have to see ideas and then build on those. I guess that is creativity, but I almost feel like I'm pretending to be an artist because I have lived with artists, true artists.
Well, and I like Jennifer's statement, give yourself a bit of a break. Creativity doesn't have to be a yes, no, path. It's a journey. And as JD expressed, I think we do think about creativity in this one very narrow definition, and we don't let ourselves think about, the creativity behind numbers, the creativity behind computer programming, the creativity behind science. There's a lot of different avenues there that we can take when it comes to expressing these creative ventures. Heather, I tend to draw a blank on what to create. I'm very good at doing crafts and figuring out what to do. Right? It's like, that's why in the email, I put in the paint by numbers link. Some of you who might be my age, in your late 50s, you may be thinking paint by numbers. You think about this little rudimentary cat or dog or something like that. I have to thank Chris Coladonato for this. The paint by numbers now are almost Picasso-like. I mean, they're beautiful. And even though it's number oriented, it's leading you down this path. You still sort of have this choice between, where do I want to go, and perhaps what colors might I want to use? Do I want to adjust this or move that? And it still gives you that creative bent, but yet at the end, you still come out with something, right? And so I think it's a great way to sort of kick off that creative mojo, if you will. Now, Maureen, didn't you mention a book earlier here?
Yeah, I mentioned two books, and the one I mentioned at the last session as well, it's called Orbiting the Giant Hairball by Gordon MacKenzie. He ended up being one of the kind of founders of shoebox greetings for Hallmark cards. And he just talks about, if you ask young kids, like, who thinks they're creative or who's artistic, who wants to be an artist, like a lot of hands go up. But then the older that they get, like the fewer hands that go up, because the message is sent that, well, creativity, that's not worth, or artistic pursuits, that's not viable, like that's not important, kind of thing. But then the other is, when somebody said looking at things from a different angle, it's How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci by Michael Gelb. And so one of the aspects is around physically looking at something from a different perspective, like going somewhere else and seeing it differently. But there's a lot of great ideas in there that were inspired by what the author believes Leonardo da Vinci was, all the different parts of his mind. It may also have to do more with allowing ourselves and our minds to be still every once in a while, so that we can let things kind of percolate, as opposed to always having to like produce.